With Vermont, how's the scene going? It seems like it's always been like a super positive scene, and kids are always pumped to travel there and play. What's the deal? Why is everybody so awesome?
It hasn't always been that way. It was the dark years, man, the late 90s. Like, there would only be like 5, 10, 20 kids showing up to shows. And it definitely like sucked for a while. But ever since about like 2000, 2001, there's been like, for some reason, like 100, 150 kids coming out to like every show. And like, I don't know, there's a lot of young kids, which I think is good. I think it's good for hardcore to have young kids, because if hardcore is nothing but old dudes, that means there's no future for the scene. And like, I don't know, everyone knows each other because it is a small scene, so everyone tends to be supportive. I think that's one of the reasons things stay so unified and pretty good, because like, people come out to the shows and people kind of have the mentality like, if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. And so people set up shows, do zines, try to make stuff happen, and that's part of how a scene works. I mean, you do a zine, you know what it's like. You're in bands, you've done lots of shit. So.
You seem to be a pretty intricate part of the Burlington scene, and a lot of people give you that credit. Is that ever kind of like stressful as you get older, and as you're definitely involved in like academics and going to school, and you have other aspects of your life? You know, is there any like a big stress in trying to keep up with the hardcore scene and doing real life things?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way in some ways, you know, because like right now I'm finishing up graduate school. I only got one more semester, and then I'm in a band, and I had a girlfriend up until recently, so that leaves up, you know, frees up some time to skate and stuff. But
he's single, ladies.
I set up like about 1 to 2 shows a month, you know, and the thing is, I love doing hardcore, I love being involved in it, and it's like a passion. It's definitely a lot of work, and it can stress me out sometimes, but I like it, so I don't mind. It's not a big deal. But yeah, for sure, as you get older and more responsibilities come up and stuff, you definitely feel some of those pressures, for sure. For all the other bands we played, I'm not even going to begin to try to name all the bands I played, but just give it up for all the other bands we played tonight. Like I said, we're My Revenge. Thank you very much for sticking around. This song is called Bust Out.
You guys recently had Bobby leave your band.
Yeah.
Who I know you've been in bands with and been friends with for a really long time. He's been involved like in the Vermont scene for a really long time. Like, how did that feel, and how come he's not in the band anymore?
Oh, straight up, like, okay, well, Bob was original drummer of My Revenge. Bob's been in the Vermont scene for years and years, playing in various bands, and he needed to leave My Revenge because the level that My Revenge was operating at, we were playing all the time. I mean, right now we have 2 tours coming up, then another tour in the spring, all this stuff. And the level that we were playing at just was, he likes hardcore and he loves playing, but he didn't want to play hardcore as full-time as we were doing it, as much as, and he has another band that he's working on too that does a lot of stuff, so between being so busy, he just couldn't do it anymore. But it didn't bum me out that he left that much, because he's my roommate. I live with him, I see him every day, we skate together, we hang out. He's like one of my 3 best friends in the whole world, so you know, it wasn't a big deal. But that's why I had to leave, and that was definitely a bummer. But now we got Ryan, and it's working out good because he's available to play all the time.
What is it? You know, what's it like to? Well, actually, no, not even. For a while, like, you had that other band going, and it definitely wasn't like a hard. You went from like In Reach to, what was it called?
You remember that shit?
Yeah.
Hemlock person.
Hemlock, like, and it seemed like you were definitely going like more towards like a goth kind of Misfits punk thing. Like, what got you interested in that? And were you like giving up on hardcore, or were you just, your interests were somewhere else?
No, like, that band was with a lot of my good friends, and this is nothing against them, but the reason we broke up is because it was a mess. We didn't have like a clear goal of what we wanted to do and what we wanted to be. For me, that band, the Hemlock Verdict, was just not even playing punk hardcore. It was like being in a band that is not playing punk hardcore, just doing something else. And that doesn't mean at all that I stopped punk or hardcore, whatever. It was just like, hey, we're gonna try. You know, it was like if someone who was interested in jazz wanted to be in a jazz band on the side or something. And we wanted to be in this kind of like dark, like kind of Cure, Joy Division, and then heavier stuff like Sam Hain, you know, influenced band, and that's something I've always liked. I've always liked, you know, bands like that. We just wanted to mess around with that because we're musicians, we love music, and that's all that was about. But that band was short-lived. We lasted 5 months, and we never had really any clear synthesis or goal to go on, and that's why I ended up fizzling out. And then I immediately started my revenge.
Do you have a concern with the fact that like fast hardcore is becoming popular again and kind of being the in thing again? Does it kind of make, because I mean, I know you've always kind of played that style in bands, so it isn't, but there's a lot of bands out there now that are somewhat questionable in their fast hardcore, traditional hardcore, like that's the kind of band we're going to be. Like, does that worry you that it's going to like burn kids out to that style of hardcore?
Sort of, yeah, because then, like, look what happened in the 1990s, you know, it's like, you had everyone playing like opening, like chug metal, more or less. Every band played that, and I think everyone burned out on that. Now, hardcore tends to work in extremes. I'm sure you notice, like, sometimes it goes, you know, everyone will be straight edge, then everyone won't be straight edge. Everyone will be vegan, then they won't be. And similarly with the musical style, you had everyone, or so many bands, rather, playing like that chug kind of hardcore. And then now every band's playing like very fast, you know, straight up hardcore, which is fun to me because that's the kind of hardcore I grew up on. That's hardcore to me. My biggest concern with the scene now is that I don't feel like a lot of bands have much to say. Whereas in the 90s, I felt there were a lot of bands that had good things to say, interesting things to say. Now people are like playing playing fast and just singing about like friends, love, relationships, things like that, which is fine. But that's kind of not all it should be, in my opinion. And that's it. Let's go. Keep it going.
constantly been shopping around for a label. Do you think it's because geographically where you live, or do you think it's, you know, you guys don't have as much hype as other bands, and have you guys finally found a label to call home, and what are you guys doing in those regards?
That's a very no, that's a very perceptive question. I mean, it would sound arrogant for me to be like, because of where we live, we're not on this label or that label. But I think it would be lying to say that that doesn't have a part of it. I mean, we're from Vermont. When you're from like a scene like Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, New York City, who has like this legacy of hardcore, you know, whether it be like Minor Threat, Scream, Faith, or Marginal Man, or like DYS and SSD, and like New York City Agnostic Front, and all those bands. You have like this legacy. You have like New York hardcore, and just the association is like gets you somewhere. Think about it. Why else would George Bush Jr. get elected? A lot of the reason George Bush got elected is name recognition, familiarity. A lot of hardcore's name recognition. Ex-members of this, New York City hardcore, from this and that, definitely bolsters and boosts people and gets them places that they may not have gotten if they were South Dakota hardcore. But that's not always true, because I mean, you look at Modern Life is War, they're from Iowa.
Yeah, but they probably would have been bigger.
Exactly, that's a good point.
Because they're amazing and they should be bigger than they are.
That's definitely a good point. So yeah, do I think being from Vermont is a disadvantage in that respect? Because of name recognition and not being from a major city? Of course, I think it would be lying. Right now, I think we're putting out our next record on Thorpe Records. He's been really nice to us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's all set to do it.
That just like made me really excited.
Oh yeah, you know, I
didn't know. Andy didn't say anything to me.
Yeah, Andy. Yeah, I think looks like what's gonna be happening. So we're hoping like February 15th.
That's
on Thorpe Records.
That just made me more pissed that my band broke up, but made me really fucking pumped. So.
Yeah, Andy's a cool guy.
Andy's awesome. Andy's awesome. And that's like another thing. I mean, that's a label I think should get way more recognition than it does. But it's not X. Label X.
Yeah.
Another thing that one thing I've always enjoyed about hanging out with you is you definitely get the liking old school hardcore and liking the history of old school hardcore, but not like wanting to emulate it, but definitely enjoying it and enjoying talking about it and appreciating it. I mean, how do you keep that mindset? Like, how would you explain that mindset for younger kids who don't really get it? Because there seems to be half the scene wants to be 1988, and the other half of the scene's like, well, fuck it, that's bullshit. All that shit sucked. And it's like there's not too many people out there who I think really get it and enjoy the past without jocking it that hard.
Well, you can't be stuck in the past. Just in the same respect that hardcore can't. You can't have just older people in the hardcore scene. Older people are great, but in the same respect, you can't just have older people in the hardcore scene, because it won't have a future in younger new kids coming in. You can't just live in the past and rely on those bands. Like, one thing that bothers me is when bands play and people just play the Youth of Today cover, play the Minor Threat cover, and they hit a Slapshot, and that's all they want to hear is like a cover by an old band. They're not into the here and now and what the newer band has to offer. Whenever I see a band play like that and I hear people start yelling out all these old bands to play, I yell out, play a new one, because I want to hear what this band, I mean, I love the old covers as much as the next guy, but I want to hear like what this new band has to offer. So it's a careful balance of you want to keep moving forward, but you also without being stuck in the past, but you also want to like remember your foundation and not kind of stray off to the point where it's not hardcore anymore, which is what I think happened in the 1990s. I mean, I would go see bands that were like full-on death metal, had nothing to do with the hardcore or punk sound, or even the hardcore or punk mentality, and they were calling themselves hardcore bands. And I was like, that's great, you can play whatever you want, but don't call it what it is. That's my feeling. If you're an emo band, just kind of like, because you got to have some identity to it, in my opinion. So that's kind of just the balance I think about striking, but it's definitely something to think about. It's a little different for newer kids, I don't have the same perspective they do, like you said, So.
You guys definitely are big on skateboarding. I mean, you guys don't hide that.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of disinterested me in skating for a while was it definitely went from a punk hardcore culture to a hip hop culture, which is, I love hip hop as well, but it definitely it was kind of upsetting to see, because then on top of it, it kind of all of a sudden got sucked up by mass media, and next thing you know, you're watching skate competitions on ESPN. Do you think skating's kind of gone back to its punk rock roots, and do Do you see, younger skateboarders kind of identifying with punk rock and hardcore more now?
More, and that's like one of the biggest functions, like goal of my revenge, is to kind of bring that, maybe a message we want to send in some roundabout way, is that, and if you think about it, and I get cheesy when I talk about skateboarding, but like, if you think about it, everything about skateboarding is punk rock, because skateboarding is all what you do for yourself. There's no teams, there's no instructor, there's nothing. And skateboarding is all how you look at the world, and it's all about the rules that you make up that work for you. And it's about seeing things differently and creating something new. That's what skateboarding is about, and it's very analogous to punk rock. And I guess I kind of want kids to see that, because I feel like you're right. You're totally right. A lot of that was lost. Like skateboarding, a lot of punk rock grew kind of hand in hand, or was like inextricably linked to skateboarding, and that separated. And one of the ways we try to bring that back together is by singing about skateboarding. Everyone in the band skates. We have songs about skateboarding, and we also have songs about kind of having skating for yourself, skating as an individual, and keeping it out of like the big business bullshit. Because just like keeping punk rock out of big business, keeping skateboarding out of big business is just as important to us.
How does it feel to be older and skating and not like professional and not the greatest skateboarder around? Like, does it ever feel odd to you that you're doing it and you're skating with these kids that are probably younger and want to be professional? And I mean, how does it feel to like be around those kids? Because I mean, I had that mentality when I was young and I skated, and you probably everybody when they're 14 wants to be a professional skateboarder, and there's definitely that point where you realize you're not gonna be. And like, what does it feel like? Because for me, it's odd, like being around kids that are skating and they're better than you, and that's their mindset. Like, and now you've reached the point where you're just skating for yourself. Like, how does it feel to be around those kids?
That's a cool question. Like, well, here's the thing. It's like, I was skateboarding at this point for 18 years. I started skating when I was 7 years old. And there are people at this point, here I am, 25 years old, and there are people who are 8, 9 years old who blow me away at skateboarding. I'm not that great of a skateboarder. I'll fully, say I'm not that great. I'm far from being pro or anything like that, or winning contests. And for the amount and the reason I brought up how long I've been skateboarding is because you'd think after 18 years, holy shit, I'd be like the best, but I'm not. But you know what? That the whole thing about skateboarding is, like I said, it's an individual sport. It's for yourself. I never in my whole life ever I managed. It gets discouraging when I see like 10-year-olds like do 11-stair handrails and I can't even like walk down the stairs. It's like, that gets discouraging. But you know what? I try not to look at them. I look. It's skateboarding is you and your skateboard and no one else. There's no competition. I don't consider. It's not about being better or worse than other people. And I just keep it as a very personal thing. And what I do is I try to just challenge myself. I say, as long as I'm getting better, and I've continued to improve over the years against myself, that's all that matters. Skateboarding is you and yourself and your skateboard, and not competitive. You just try to better yourself that way. And I don't look at what other people are doing. But it is hard sometimes. I agree with you.
How do you feel a message board like that affects the scene? And do you think a lot of people accuse message boards of making hardcore too easy for kids? And do you agree with that?
Message boards are a double-edged sword. They can be great because now you get to know hardcore kids all over the country. You can talk to people from California, Texas, wherever, and get to know people. And then that's also great if you're in a band, because then you just find the person who books the shows on the message board and email him or her, and you can hook up with shows, and there's like a camaraderie that goes along with it. Plus, it's kind of like, it's a great way to get through a long day at work or school,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really good things and positive things I think that can come out of a hardcore message board. Like I said, getting to know people, networking, and accessibility. But I don't think pertaining to hardcore at all. I think just in general, message boards can be dangerous because, as you know, some of those people on that Bridge 9 board, it doesn't matter what time of day. If you post, they'll post back within 5 minutes. It's like they're on there, I think, a dangerous, like an unhealthy amount. Not to sound like a parent or anything, it can't be that good to be sucked into cyberspace and kind of like trade in your real interpersonal human relationships with cyber relationships. I don't think that's good or natural, and like that's the only point is where it can get destructive. But other than that, like I visit like 8 message boards regularly, and like as long as you don't overdo it, it can be a good thing.
Is it hard being 25 and not being a responsible adult, or taking kind of the adult position when you're dealing with younger kids? And sometimes, like, I mean, for me, it's because I work with kids for a living. Sometimes it's hard not to almost take that tone, the teacher tone or that librarian tone? Like, do you find yourself having the same problem that sometimes you are acting with an adult mentality and what you're doing is right, but there's that serious line where you have to still remember there's that peer still, like, it's still a peer relationship because of the scene. Do you find yourself doing that with the Vermont scene?
It's getting there. It's getting there more and more as I get older. Maybe, you're 3 years older, maybe you experienced it more. It's getting to that way. There's a lot of things that, like, people don't realize it when at certain ages, but the older you get, things aren't as they were. Look at things slightly differently. Like, I look at straight edge differently now than I did when I was 18. And, like, because a lot of the reasons to be straight edge at 16, 17, or 18 are not there when you're 25, 26, 27. There's different reasons. There's different, and that's one thing, I've been thinking about is that, like, right now, I'm still straight edge, but my reasons for being straight edge are different than they were. Like, there's not that peer pressure. I'm not in high school. There's not, everything's legal. There's not that thing of being before 21. 21 has come and gone. And so I think, not to digress, but I'm saying, like, that's one aspect where I've seen, like, just getting a little older, your perspectives can change, and you gotta try to pause to still relate to people who may not be your age or be in a different place to, kind of relate to them and not come across like, I don't know, maybe like you said, you gotta understand people as your peers within the scene in that context. So yeah, I definitely see what you're saying.
Being older, I mean, I've noticed my friends are getting younger and younger, and it's sometimes really, really weird. Do you have that same problem? I mean, because most guys our age drop out of hardcore a long time ago.
It's definitely, it's cool to meet someone so similar, like, to my situation. Like, we both have a similar situation. Yeah, I mean, right now my revenge is me. I'm 25. Mike Halverson, our bass player, is 26, and then our drummer is 19, and our guitar player is 18. And that there is a big discrepancy in hardcore. But there's a fair amount of kids who are my age still involved in the scene, Bobby, and some other kids who are 25 and 26 in Vermont. And I hang out with them primarily. Some other dudes are younger, 23, 24. But I also have some friends who are, definitely still teenagers. And I just say, fuck it, as long as they're cool, as long as they're not, I can relate to them in some cool way, like, and we can be friends and we both have, like, kind of common ideals about things. I really don't care that much, but yeah, I definitely see it happening more, because so many, you got to figure with any hardcore scene, 5 to 10% stick around, maybe 5% stick around for years and years, but the other 90, 95% turns over, and so you're bound to. I guess you just want to pick the friends that are, hang out with the friends that are your true friends, and whatever age they may be. That's cool.